All right, all right, all right. Greetings and welcome back once again. I pray everybody is doing well. Let me go ahead and bring in this thing and then we're going to get on to the topic. All right, all right, all right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody is doing well. And if you're tuning in, you're probably like, Amuna, you just said that you wasn't doing Bob because we're doing Marcus. And you're absolutely right. We are doing Marcus. And so this is only a continuation of the last video before we go forward in the Amy and Marcus saga. To tell you the truth, I needed to take a breather because, like I said in yesterday's episode about contrasting Marcus to his national hero, okay, his historic hero, which was Napoleon Bonaparte, there was some striking similarities, even many of which I realized, and some people put in the comment section after the video, right? Like him, Napoleon declaring himself emperor of France. I think I said that, and crowning himself, and Marcus also declaring himself the provisional president of Africa. When I first saw that, I was like, huh? So even after that conversation, I was like, you know what? I made a mention of something yesterday as it relates to um, how people see Bob. And I'm starting to wonder how Bob saw Marcus. Did that bring Marcus back into the forefront, right? Did Rastafari bring Marcus Garvey back into the forefront? And if so, in what way? Now, we know and we have heard that Marcus is a prophet. And we've also heard people say Bob Marley is a prophet, and some people say he's a god. And these two men are, I think they're important to the storyline of Marcus Garvey because he precedes Bob, right? But the question is, were they basing a lot of this information on facts? Like basically the stuff we are learning about Marcus now, did Bob Marley really know to that extent? Much like the stuff we learned about Bob Marley in the last series. If you missed it, it's a lot going on. Yeah, was that when I'm lost my train of thought? Yeah, the stuff we learned about Bob, we didn't know that before. A lot of us didn't know it before. This is why it was so shocking, right? And then you ask yourself, given all the things you're learning about the person, does that make them a prophet? Questions. So this is why I'm doing this particular one on the heels of just some contextual type of conversation before we move forward, right? Because a lot of times for we the people, we get sound bites and then we run with that. Bob Marley did say, Marcus Garvey did say, Bob Marley did say, Marcus Garvey did say, and it's just these little tiny sound bites that people have, and they run around the world. They do the Usain Bolt, okay, around the world with it. But when you get into the depth of it, we all go quiet into crickets. Greetings and welcome for those who've joined us because we're not taking the time. So that's why I appreciate everybody who tunes in during the lives and after to take the time to go through this information and then be able to have more to add to the conversation than just, yes, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Bro, we're gonna need a little more than that. So with that said, that is why I am doing this particular one, because I mentioned it and it started a conversation. So let me read the conversation in the comment section. Savvy and Lady says, I don't consider Bob as a God prophet. Yes, because I said that people were saying that he was a prophet, and I'm going to show you those things. As a matter of fact, let me show you that and then get into the conversation that made me say, you know what, let me do the video because I said it in passing. And I see that it is stirring the pot. Stir it up, stirring the pot a little bit, right? And what makes a prophet? I heard somebody say, what makes a prophet? But before we go to what makes a prophet, I just want to put up some of what's being saying in these streets. Some of what is being said in these streets. We have This is coming from Facebook and different social medias. Bob Marley is like a god to us, not to the person who said this. Don't you agree? So they made a statement in there, asked if we agree. He teaches us about life and the world we live in. So to me, it sounds like the person is making a statement, then asking an affirmative question. Well, asking a negative question, but asking you to affirm, and then telling you why he thinks he's a god, because he teaches about life and the world that we live in. So then one would have to ask, does that make you a god because you teach about life and the world we live in? Would that make teachers a god because they teach about life and the world we live in? I don't know, but this is just a reasoning. Another one, Bob a prophet, enough said. Another one says, the last modern prophet of our times, the one and only Bob Marley. So you see that it's being said that Bob Marley is a prophet. Let me continue here. Hold on. Another one says here, if you jump down, it says he was a musical prophet. So now it's going from just a prophet, because then we're going to have to look up, well, what is a prophet, right? To a musical prophet. And then we have more. This is different people that they believe Bob is a prophet. One person is saying he is. The next person is saying they believe. The next person is saying that he was. Another person is saying that he is a true prophet and loved his teachings through music, and some of his message to us is about mental slavery. So again, they're referencing why it's important. They're referencing a speech by Selassie, right? But Selassie becomes valuable because of what Marcus Garvey is said to have said. So all of this is a chain reaction. It is said of Marcus that he prophesied about a coming of a black king. That's what it said. Now we're going to look today a little bit to see if Marcus actually said that or not, right? According to the reports. Because this is for context. No worry, people. Those who are coming for Amy and Marcus, no worry. We'll go back in it, but we didn't need a little breather. So it's said of Marcus that he prophesied Selassie, and Selassie is the second coming, right? Therefore, those who embrace the message of Selassie being the second coming as prophesied in the Bible, the New Testament, then being that Bob Marley is the forerunner for Rastafari, meaning he's not the first, but he's the one who took it to the world. Then because he took that message to the world, people are saying that he now is a prophet. Hey, I know me I say so. We just I read what people are saying. Another one says, this is what I was actually looking for the video, but after I finished doing the whole Bob Marley stuff, it kind of like scrambled up and I couldn't remember the quote. But I shout out to this person, Tammy, who quoted it, because I remember seeing the video. I just couldn't find it back. When asked, Bob Marley says, I am no prophet. So look at this. It's so funny. The people are saying, you're a prophet, man, you're a prophet, you're a prophet. And he's saying, I'm no prophet. In another video, they said, you're a superstar. And he's like, I'm not a superstar, right? So the quote is, I'm no prophet. I just conscious of things that happen. God made them happen. Them not happen without him. So I just follow his vision. It is he who give me the inspiration to write. I not do it without him. So he's saying that his writings are divinely inspired because he's reading his chapter a day. He's going in, he's holding his meds, and he's not a prophet. He's just very observant. This is what he's saying. This is what I'm getting. You let me know what you're getting. So what I have to say comes from him and projects his wishes. So basically, he's saying he's not a prophet, but if he's getting his inspiration to write from God and he now brings that to the people, well, that would be a textbook definition of a prophet because the prophet is divinely inspired. But we'll read that in a second, right? I just wanted to read what was out there. I can't find back the video. If you have seen that video or that clip, let me know. But I know I saw the video. So shout out to the person who shared that. So now we're going to go to I forget to turn off that phone. Yeah. Now we're going to go to Marcus now. Okay. Remember, the question is, were there prophets? Who's saying this? They're saying they're a prophet. The people are saying they're a prophet. Did the creator say there was a prophet? Because if you're a prophet, then you have to be divinely inspired by a divine power to give the information that you're going to give. And just because you're inspired doesn't mean that you are bringing the information from the right source. Because if that be said, you can have somebody who's a medium and they're bringing information from souls on the other side of the veil. Does that mean they're a prophet because they're inspired to bring a message? No, right? So this prophet thing gets very interesting. But let me read this really quickly. I mean, hold on there. I'm gonna come and see what you guys. I just wanted to be like, I'm gonna, yeah, make up this thing. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I've seen this stuff and I'm like, cha, I can't bother ya. If they want to say so. But then after a while, I'm like, come on now. Let's have the discussion because maybe, just maybe, we have different definitions. I'm just blowing this up so I can see it better. Hold on. So this is an article by Major Gustav Vervelet, right? In Brussels, August 1921, the Pan-African movement. So they're looking at the Pan-African movement, and this is what he says. Down where you see the little box, it says, an excerpt of an August 1920 speech given in New York by Marcus Garvey, the prophet of Pan-Negroism. Yo, did he call it Pan-Negroism, Jed? Sorry, mega focus. Not Pan-Negroism. I don't know why that sounds funny. Anyway, demonstrates clearly the potential of the Pan-Negro movement, right? So here it's calling Marcus Garvey the prophet or a prophet of the Pan-Negro movement, later on to be known as the Pan-African movement. Let me get another one up here. This is what's been said. It's what's said of you. It's what you say of yourself. It's what is actually true. Like, which one is it? We trying to get to the meat and the potatoes. In another excerpt, it says here, referring to Mr. Pierre Day's study that we have just briefly analyzed, Mr. J. Crockett contrasts the portrait of Garvey, the present prophet of the Pan-Negroism. So another person, again, in another space, I think it's the same article because they use the same language, right? Calls him Pan-Negro or Pan-African prophet, okay? And Marcus, I showed at another time, he even said to the people that he's prophesying to them, right? Because I remember, I think it was Winter, shout out to you, like, when did Marcus prophesy? And in the text, he's like, oh, I prophesy to you. I tell you this day, right? So Marcus spoke in that way, which is very curious because now we're going to read the definition of a prophet. We're going to, no, Boana, I'm not done yet. I'm just taking a little break because I needed some context and hopefully this will give us context going forward. I'm not done, Amy. We ain't even get started all the way yet. We are definitely going to resume after this, but I needed a little context because Amy and Marcus' behavior was giving outside influence. So if you missed yesterday's video, definitely check it out. It was giving outside influence. It was giving, now that we know that his favorite historical character or person was Napoleon, a lot of his behavior and even the relationship with Amy Garvey, number one, was taking cues from Napoleon. So I kind of stopped to kind of explore that, and I'm stopping to explore this as well because I saw that it's creating a conversation that I suppose needs to be had, right? So trust me, no worry, man. When they tune back in, we're dead back on it again. So in the comment section, we have people saying they don't consider Bob a god. They consider him a prophet. Someone else says, Aras says, why would anyone consider Bob Marley as a god? Well, I just showed you guys that's what people are doing, so I don't know. Also, is a prophet or prophet not a person who is said to have divine contact and teach or deliver messages on behalf of our divine masters to others? What did I miss about Bob? A great musician and songwriter, question mark? Yes, probably deserves the highest accolade for the music industry has to offer, but as a prophet, the person says absolutely no. There was no divine messages or any supernatural teachings. I would even argue that there were some hypocritical teachings about Rasta to suit his own narrative and chosen lifestyle. Okay, I'm reading off of the comment board that, I said, you know what, let me come and talk and make a share. All right. The man who the Rastas look up to as God said in his own words, I am a mere man. And they're referring to Haile Selassie, right? So there's a lot of confusion around Selassie. It's kind of like John the Baptist. Are you the one? And John is like, no. And Selassie's like, no, it's not me. I'm not the one, but the people insisted. You understand what I'm saying? This is kind of what's going on here. Let me read these comments, and then we're going to look at the definition of a prophet. As a matter of fact, before I get off, then let me read the definition of a prophet first. Let me pull it up on my screen here. Hold on there. Because in the Bible, which is what he said to be drawing inspiration from, in the Bible, the word for prophet, the Hebrew word for prophet, if I'm not mistaken, would be nabi, right? Hold on. Where did I just put the thing? Where did it go? Hold on there, peoples. Okay. And a prophet is a spokesperson, a speaker, right? Someone who is speaking on behalf of the divine, just like the person in the comment section said. Hold on, But a seer, which is also early on was interchanged with this word for prophet, is someone who has vision, right? So basically, these people are supposed to be able to, what today would be called audio clearing. You'll be able to hear messages, spiritual messages. You'll be able to see spiritual messages, right? Of which you're supposed to pass on to the people. Now, just as much as, and I'll read the official definition here. In religion, a prophet or prophetess is an individual who is regarded as being in contact with a divine being and is said to speak on behalf. Like much times in the text, the biblical text, you will say, thus saith Yahweh, thus saith. That means you're not speaking like, oh, I'm just inspired. It's equivalent to what the church will say, the Lord told me to tell you. That's what they say in the church, right? That means that you directly got this message and you're not putting any spin on it. And you are the person now, because you heard it, you're now going to deliver it to the person that it is meant for, or the people that it is meant for. Serving as an intermediary with humanity by delivering messages or teachings from the supernatural source to other people. Okay. So for instance, Moses was considered a prophet because he heard the word and he transmitted that word to the people, and he transmitted the teachings, which was the Torah, to the people. And therefore, Moshe or Moses is considered a prophet, right? So you have a lot of examples of prophets in the biblical context, and then you also have people who have prophets outside the biblical context, right? So then, because we have this kind of framework now, it's important for us to look at it and be like, do these two people, or did these two people fit within this framework? Were they transmitting something that already wasn't? Because, for instance, Rastafari is supposed to be an interpretation of the Nazarite vow. So it's not as if you're getting new laws or new information or new behavior. It's really revisiting those laws and implementing them in your life, unless you're coming up with something new and saying, yes, God told me to tell you that you should be doing these things. Also, Marcus is saying he's inspiring the people to get themselves together, to come together as a nation, to do all of these things. Does that qualify as being prophetic? Unless he tells them, listen, this is coming. And again, there's so much stuff that Marcus has said. I don't know. But my point is, what did they do that would qualify them to be known as a prophet and to be taught as a prophet? Because prophets have prophecies, and then we look for prophecies to be fulfilled, right? That's kind of how it works. So let me go ahead and read this really quickly, and then I'm going to share something that I found curious, but I never got around to it, and now I am, right? So let me see what you guys are saying. What is a prophet? We just went over that. Marcus was made into a mythical. Well, that's what we're getting into now, Jeremiah. There's a lot of stuff that happened that we're unpacking as we speak. So hopefully you guys can join the Marcus Garvey conversation. And if you go ahead and get the, what do you call it there? in the playlist if you've missed any of the episodes. That's the question, Sister Holder, that we're looking to discover. Did they deliver the Creator's message? And if so, in what way? Did they alter it in any way? Did they interpret it in any way? Right? Did they use the "Thus saith the Creator" preface on their statements to indicate that it wasn't man, it wasn't ego, but this is the word of the Most High that they were called to transmit? Grown Up Jamaican says both prophet for real. None of the biblical prophets were perfect. And that's another thing. Do prophets need to be perfect? But do they need to be purified? Remember when the Most High, and you guys tell me, because y'all on your biblical stuff, when the Creator called a prophet, which prophet was it that said that he's a man of unclean lips? And he kind of tried to disqualify himself from being called and being chosen because he felt like he wasn't purified enough. He wasn't cleansed enough. Who was that? I'll wait. So y'all could just drop that in the box. I'm going to just keep going down. So no, they weren't perfect, but the thought is that if you're going to be a vessel that the Creator is going to use, then you have to go through some purification so that the words that come forth are not necessarily tainted by our own ego, our own desires, our own interpretation. Let's continue. So Bible said Bob was a man who was able to prophesy. Jeremiah says people use the word prophet loosely, and that's what we're trying to define at this point. Because sometimes you may see it and they may mean teacher, right? Or they may mean somebody who had a wise word to say, Sister who says David was a musical prophet putting God's word into music. And again, yes, David, if you look at the life of David and how he was able to compile all of those lyrical songs, because that's what Psalms is, you see something similar. But even in the Psalms, David was sometimes talking about his own issues. He wasn't like, oh, the Most High told me to sing this song. It's his own pains, his own hurts, his own experiences. He's putting it to music, and he's delivering it to the people. It's not all. Some of that is coming from a personal space. Survivor side is that he channeled prophecy, but he was not a biblical prophet. He was not a prophet by biblical standards. Thank you guys all for this feedback. I might have to go get me some water real quick. Jeremiah said Garvey's prophecies are unsubstantiated. I would have to know what they are, right? What did Garvey prophesy? That's a question. A lot of people say Garvey was a prophet, but what did he prophesy? It's a lot of work to go through. Correct. Prophet is supposed to be the messenger, but they're supposed to be divinely inspired. Like Ezekiel is a prophet. He was able to see in visions and dreams. He go to sleep, he wake up, he can tell what's going to happen. Jeremiah, but Moses, he can hear. He didn't have to. He says Moses is not like how the Creator would speak to other people. He says Moses, he speaks to him face to face, right? Other people may get it in dreams and visions. So Moses was able to hear the voice of the Creator. So there's different types of people who can receive the message in different ways, but how do we, because there are also such things as false prophets. So how do you determine if this message that you're hearing, what is the litmus test to determine the message that you're hearing, whether or not it is true? You understand? Yeah, somebody could falsify the prophesy. The Bible also talks about false prophets. Right? Jezebel had her prophets. You had people who had prophets and prophesy according to whatever it is they felt the people wanted to hear. It doesn't necessarily mean it was divinely inspired, right? We see the same stuff today. Let's see here. Okay, so we're hearing that Bo says there's prophets and then there's being prophetic. I would love to know what the difference. There's prophets and then there's being prophetic. That's interesting. Help me to understand what the difference is between the two. Bob and Marley were prophets in mystical and practical ways. people have an issue of to think of a black man as prophets? No, because all of the prophets in the Bible were melanated. So that's not the issue. That's not the issue at all. The issue is if we look at what the message was, okay, and then you have to measure it up against truth, or the understanding of what truth is in this present time, to see whether or not these prophecies held up. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's gonna come a time, blah 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 blah, whatever the person is saying. Okay, did that hold true? We don't know. So I don't think there's a problem with that. I just think what was being said, was it coming from the personal mind, or was it coming from the divine mind? Yeah, David was a king. Some people will say, oh, David prophesied, but Samuel was the prophet, right? That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. If we say David was a prophet, what did David prophesy? We know in the case of Samuel's a prophet. He also heard the voice of the Most High. Samuel, and he was like, yo, he runs to Eli, right? So again, we could go deep into the biblical study of it to really flesh out who were the prophets from who were, or were they prophets and kings and priests. This is all important because now we're using words from that time period. We're using words and concepts that in this place it's coming from a biblical angle, and now we're all, we all over with it, which is why I think there's a lot of confusion even in today's space and time. Everyone has the ability to connect with the Most High and channel prophecy, but that does not make them a prophet. Interesting concept. Interesting. Very interesting stuff. Before I go on, now let me just put the link in the box, see if you have anything to say, and then we're going to go over to this prophecy that is said of Marcus Garvey. I put the link in the box if anyone would like to share. So what is it said of Marcus Garvey? It said that what? Garvey prophesied the coming of a black king, right? Isn't that what it said? Or what we've heard, among other things? And I remember some time ago, I came across some information and I was like, oops, oops. This seems like a little game of telephone here. Right. Hopefully I didn't go too fast through that stuff. I just wanted to kind of show that this is something. And later on, you see Rita Marley coming and say it on the behalf of Bob. And you have Neville Garrick saying some stuff. And you have a lot of people, not Marcia. Hey, Marcia kind of said something to that effect, as well as people who are around. They say things. And then it kind of feeds more into the conversation about, was the person a prophet, or was the person just delivering a message? All right. So let me share this screen really quickly. I decided, let me just do this first, and then I will if you have something to say, then I'll let you share it on this particular topic. On this particular part, and then we're gonna, get back into it. So this is an article. Let me move my screen real quick. All right. Here is an article about Reverend. This is from Rastafari TV, so it's not even a hater where somebody will be like, "Oh, it's a hater when I understand Rasta." No, Rastafari TV. They even threw up Amharic up here. Okay, my Amharic skills have fallen off, but I do know that is Amharic. Okay, so Reverend James Morris Webb, quote, "Look to Africa," end quote, speech mistaken for Garvey. So if this is one of the prophecies, then we may be mistaken, because according to history, Garvey got this from someone else. So let's read a little bit. Many people believe that it was Marcus Garvey who in 1920 said, Look to Africa, when a black king shall be crowned, for the day of deliverance is at hand. Remember, Rasta said, Garvey prophesied Selassie, and that's when them know, say Selassie is king, and that them say. But we are learning that it wasn't Garvey who prophesied this. It says, come true in 1930 when Rastafari Makonnen was crowned the new emperor of Ethiopia and became known as Emperor Haile Selassie. However, the fact is that it was Reverend James Morris Webb who made the proclamation. How many people came across this type of information before? And I find it to be curious. Let's continue. Full up on the story of Reverend James Morris Webb, the black man, the father of civilization, by Julio Van Regine. And so I suppose that here is the information. Okay, I'm going to put the link in the box so you can peruse it at your own discretion. It has a quote, perhaps some people confuse Garvey's ideas with those of Reverend James Webb, who in 1924 pronounced the coming of a redeeming black king in a speech delivered in Liberty Hall. Here is the book, The Black Man, the Father of Civilization. He wrote a book. Let's go ahead and come down. So that's very interesting. Again, I said I'm going to leave the link in the box. He goes over his thought processes of the Bible. Moses being rescued by a Negro woman. So he's bringing in this thought process because this thought process wasn't new. It was already bubbling before the early 1900s, right? You had people really coming to an understanding about the Bible and how it was misinterpreted and fed to people, right? But let's continue. I want to jump down here to the prophecy that is said that it was him who said it and not Marcus. Marcus repeated, according to the story, what he heard. Hold on, this is a long article. I want a long article. Hold on there. And he was very vocal. If you look at his clippings, Jesus was a Negro by blood. If you look at his clippings, he's going in. He's going in. All right. So this is, again, this just like the Napoleon conversation. This is also important because it provides context to what we are reading. It says in 1921, Webb joined the Marcus Garvey movement and became an active organizer. So after he was doing all of that conversation, not only in Seattle, but also in San Francisco and Los Angeles, he gave lectures in Liberty Hall in New York City, made motion pictures of Garvey and Garveyite events, filmed biblical pageants, and gave lectures in Liberty Hall, New York, where on 22nd of October 1921, he showed his films and his documentaries material of biblical history to an audience there on the 22nd of October, 1921. And on the 5th of November, the same year, he preached on the topic, God is waiting for the gathering of Ethiopia. Webb asserted that Garvey was the Moses of the modern age. So it is Webb, it seems, that's prophesying about Garvey. In a lecture entitled The Garvey Movement is Biblical, and in a pamphlet, The Black Man Will Be the Coming Universal King, Negro World, the 29th of July, 1922. Let me jump down a little bit. I'm definitely going to give you this article because it is quite fascinating. I'm trying to look for the other part where they said that he prophesied to look. Oh, see here, Reverend Webb to speak at Negro churches. The Reverend James M. Webb, evangelist and former resident here, who is remembered for his sermons in Seattle nearly 30 years ago, is a visitor in the city and plans to speak at Negro churches on, quote, a colored king is coming to stop all wars, end quote. So it would seem that this particular pastor not only said this, but he had a whole, it was his forte. This was his area. This is what he spoke about often. It goes on to say, for many people, Webb's prophecy that a black king would be crowned to rule the world was fulfilled with Ras Tafari McCunnin. Whose prophecy? Webb's prophecy. Emperor of Ethiopia on the 2nd of November, 1930. He laid down his civilian name and called himself his Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, the power of the Trinity, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conqueror line of the tribe of Judah, elect of God, Emperor of Ethiopia. I'm gonna put this in the box for you guys. Why is this important? Because that would mean Anna Marcos prophesied that. Anna Marcos prophesied that. See the article there. So now I'll go back to the original question. And the original question is, were they prophets? And if they were prophets, then what did they prophesy? And if they prophesied, then did it come to pass? Right? These are the prophets go by a litmus test. It's not just teachers. Bob said of himself that, let's see what he said of himself according to the quote. According to the quote. And then I'm going to come to the open the mic. This is not about feelings. Because when somebody come and say they're a prophet, it's not about feelings. This now is about, thus saith your power, this thing shall happen, this thing came to pass. It's kind of like 1, 2, 3, the way there. You know what I mean? It's not I feel this, or maybe get an inspiration, or no, thus saith your power, this thing shall come to pass, this thing came to pass. 1, 2, 3. So it is said that he said, I am no prophet. I am just conscious of the things that happen. God make them happen, then they happen without him. So I just follow his vision. It is he who has given the vision to write. You understand? So let me come to the comment section now. And then again, I'm going to open up the mic. All right, Jeremiah, check out the article if you guys haven't already. It is in the box. So let me go here. People around Bob felt, oopsie. People around Bob felt, which brought me there now? The energy and believed that he was a prophet for real. I hear you. But again, is there a criteria for the prophet? If it is, then what is it? Right? We could feel that this person is divinely inspired. We can feel that the person is, but is the person, the prophet is just not divinely inspired. This is what the message is that you're supposed to bring this person. And then that thing that you said will come to pass, shall come to pass. If not, then it's a false prophecy, right? Because you do have such a thing as false prophecy. Then when people prophesy of their own imagination, right? So I'm not trying to comfort anybody specifically, but we have to have a standard to say, okay, according to the text, this is what a prophet is, and this is what has to come to pass in order for the prophet not to be a false prophet. It says here, I think it was, okay, no. Yeah, we just gave this. And yeah, I do think people use the term loosely. So let me open up. I see that Tate has joined us. We're talking about what was just presented. So I look forward to your thoughts on whether or not he was, Marcus and Bob was a prophet, why or why not. Tate, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Mona. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for waiting.
No problem. The first time I heard someone refer to Bob as a prophet, I was watching an interview that Diane Jobson did. She was talking about how she wasn't happy with the movie and stuff because it doesn't really reflect him, and she thinks that he was a prophet sent from God. Um, For me, I'm not sure. I wouldn't like. I don't know if he was a prophet. I don't like. I don't think he was a prophet. By definition, like a messenger from God, but I don't know because like God might send messengers in many forms. But I do think he had like prophetic ways, if that makes sense. And I do think that he had like a deep love for humanity.
Okay.
And he did use music to like spread message of like love and stuff. And yeah, I don't like I think I told you last time the book that I'm currently reading on him, and like that book really shows like the deep love like Bob had for humanity and the stuff that he was doing, like even in like in Zimbabwe and in Gabon. But yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know if he was a prophet, but I do think that he had a deep love for humanity that we don't see in a lot of people.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That was Tate sharing. I didn't see anybody put which prophet said that he was a man of unclean lips when we're talking about perfection, not necessarily perfection, but definitely being aware of the life that you're living, right? And so it was the prophet Isaiah who said that when coming into contact with divine, he says that he's a man of unclean lips and he dwell amongst in the midst of people with unclean lips, and that his eyes has seen the creator, right? This is Isaiah chapter 6 verse 5. So when you look at, because that would have been the model that both of these men are looking at, and so when you look at what prophets and how they were in times of old, they were not perfect, but they were definitely aware that they had to live, they had to move in a certain way, not just in profession of mouth, but in a manifestation of the behavior that they were exhibiting. Because hello, you understand? Yeah. Yeah, so that's the question we're asking respectfully. It's not to necessarily come for anybody. Again, like I said, I've seen it said. I continue to hear it being said. And one is leading into the next, much like how we had to go over yesterday. And it was uncomfortable to see all of the similarities between Marcus Garvey and Napoleon. Okay. But the reality is, it's there. How can we deny that it's not there when it's definitely there? So in this particular case, how can we keep saying someone is a prophet, and then the person says of themselves they're not a prophet, and then we don't know what they prophesied, right? So we can take off the look to the east for the coming of a black king. We can stop attributing it according to the narrative to Marcus, because this is what Rastas were looking towards Marcus for, among other things, getting yourself together, unifying, things of that nature. However, that particular statement was not come from Marcus. It was popularized by Marcus. It didn't come from him, which is very curious. When I found that out, I just didn't have time to bring it forward, but that was curious. I agree, survival prophets are held to a higher standard. They are absolutely held to a higher standard. You can't be a prophet of the creator if you're looking at the biblical text and just carry on any kind of way. That not gonna work. So you know what I mean? That right there is a no. That right there is a no. So then again, I ask, prophet? If so, how? Now, as he said, this is what I'm examining for myself here, Tate. I've heard it. Not until this time have I didn't think that they were prophets. I've heard it from time memorial, and now I'm learning to just be humble with the whole situation, because even things that were attributed to one person, it's not even correct. It's like when you hear somebody talk about the Bible and then you read it for yourself, and then people misquote the Bible and they say the Bible says, and then you go looking for it and it doesn't say that, right? So I've learned in this day and time to be humble and to really kind of step back from being emotionally involved in the outcome, right? Because I wasn't there and this is history. So it may be, people may have their reasons to present it in such a way, but the reality is it true? And if we follow him, for instance, if you follow what Marcus was saying? Would it lead you to where he told you it would go? Did it lead him to where he said it would go? If you follow what Bob Marley was saying, the Wailers were saying, would it lead you to where they said it would lead you? And if they said it would lead you to anywhere? I mean, usually, historically, biblically, a prophecy is like the Most High tells his prophet, hey, tell the people this is going to happen. Bam, 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 in this amount of time, and it shall come to pass. Usually prophets say stuff like that. Thus saith the Creator, and it shall come to pass. You know what I mean? That means they're letting you know, hey, know for surety that this thing is going to happen. Right? But that's not what we're seeing here. So it leads me to believe that there's some other things that may be mixed up into it, and we may be inspired and it may give us a strength, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they were prophesying this straight from the Creator. People tend to idolize the ones they look up to. We can look up to Bob and Marcus, but that's correct. We do not need to idolize people if we don't get nothing out of this whole conversation. Even me taking 2 steps back from seeing how your foreparents were behaving for the world to see, on a public stage. Yeah. It just gives you pause. It gives you pause, right? No, it's not that Marcus pushed Rastafari. It has been said that Marcus is the one who let Rastafari know that Selassie is that king. So it has been said that Marcus is the one who said, look to the east for the coming of a black king. And the coronation of Selassie is the fulfillment of prophecy, quote unquote, from Marcus. This is how Marcus comes into it, along with his ideologies of building up and having pride in self. So Marcus definitely, he's the precursor, he's the forerunner to this whole conversation. He is the forerunner to this conversation in this context. Why? Because when they see that, when we read in Rita's conversation, and she was saying she was looking to see if Selassie was the man, why would they be looking to see if Selassie was the man? Oh, I'm going to say you use the word humble a lot. Well, yeah, you could definitely share it. You could definitely share it. Okay, Lala said that yes, his mother, it was said, I think it was in his mother's book that he told someone, but this is posthumously. She's telling us that he said that. So what Lala is saying, that he said that this was going to be the age that he was going to go, and he did. So is he prophesying from the Creator, or does he have insight into his own personal life? Like I said, people get messages from all kind of places. That's the reality. And we see that because we have examples of this. If we're going to use the biblical text, we have examples of this. People can get information from different sources, but prophets are usually told to go and inform other people about what shall befall them and what happens. And you understand? Not everywhere you get the information from is necessarily to say that you were prophesied by God. You understand? No, most definitely. Kings and prophets they have 2 different offices. They have 2 different offices. But in this, what we're talking about today, and only because it has been said time and time again that someone is a prophet. And so it's just an interesting conversation. And again, I put the link in the box if you have anything to add or share with the conversation. But yeah, that's kind of what I have. Let me see. There was something else that was talking about. This is another article here. Hold on. This is another article. So let me share this article really quickly. This is for clarity, not to tear anybody down. But just because it has been said doesn't mean it is true. and doesn't mean that it continues to serve us as we move forward, because people are going to take something and then try to implement it in their lives, and or try to rule others by it, or try to encourage other people to implement it. But so that it behooves us to look at it and say, well, is it true? Should we be applying this in our lives? We do it with everything else. One time they used to put lead in paint because they claimed that it gave it more color, right? But then you go down the line and you say lead don't belong in a paint because it is poisonous. They used to put lead not too long ago in women's lipstick. It don't belong inside there. It is poisonous. So you have to review things that you once did because you thought it was the best practice, to see whether or not it's still applicable and whether or not we should still be doing this. And just to show you how and why getting clarity is important, see our article just written 2 years ago. Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley. This is why I put these two together, not because we're going back into Bob, but because we started with Bob conversation and now we're at Garvey, who came before him, and he's informing Rastafari's teachings to a certain degree and the movement to a certain degree, right? So I just want to just show you why not everything that's written, that we read about something, sometimes people are taking it topical, just like we used to take it topical. So it says here, nowhere do two great Jamaicans, Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, meet than in the phrase above. Potent phrases, which is emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, right? The person goes on to say, anyway, let me not go off. Potent phrases from Marcus that were meant to unify, free, and uplift an oppressed Black race. When Bob Marley put Marcus Garvey's words to song, he most likely had the same intentions, but somewhere along the way, the phrase seems to have lost their original meanings. What was originally meant to break the chains of oppression became let's get together, smoke weed, and pretend everything is all right in the name of profit. I didn't write this, but whoever did, shots fired. Marcus Garvey prophesied to Black people that they should, quote, look to Africa when a Black king shall be crowned, for the day of deliverance is near, end quote. That quote, as we're just reading, is incorrectly attributed to Marcus Garvey. Therefore, according to what we're learning, Marcus did not prophesy that. In 1930, when Haile Selassie was crowned in Ethiopia, the words of Marcus Garvey inspired men like Leonard Howell, Fernando Ricketts, Joseph Hibbard, Archibald Dunkley, and Robert Hines to start a new movement in Jamaica called Rastafari. Haile Selassie's title was Rastafari. In addition, the Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Conquering Lion of Judah, which is a whole nother conversation, all led to the belief that he was the reincarnation of God. This is why I say, even when you get beyond, okay, it wasn't Marcus who said that, even the interpretation of the Bible leads to this point. So all of it needs to be reassessed, right? All led to the belief that he was the reincarnation of God, the Black Messiah, the Savior, the Christ that was prophesied by Isaiah, again, a prophet, in the Old Testament. So Isaiah in the Old Testament speaks a word, and they're looking for the fulfillment of that word. Now it is obvious that Bob Marley's intention was to carry out the work of Marcus Garvey. This is why these two are here. And he actually did an excellent job of it. Interesting. Nowhere is it more evident than in the song Africa Unite, where Bob Marley called for Africa to unite so her children scattered abroad could come home. The song is right in line with Marcus Garvey Back to Africa movement. In fact, in live performances of the song, Bob often sings, Marcus Garvey said it, so let it be done. We are the children of Africa. I'll go ahead and put this link in the box so you can read the rest of that at your own discretion. It's just to show that how can you really separate the two when one is looking and taking cues from the other. All right. I'm not going to stay long today. We almost had an hour. Let me see here. Marcus Garvey's philosophy and ideas are pretty much in tune with Rastafari. I mean, it would have to be Rastafari would be in tune with him if they're taking. I mean, who? Unless I'm, mm, mm, maybe not be a prophet, but he sure is a messenger. Okay, so Debbie's saying that he might not be a prophet. Okay, so then what is a messenger? These are things that, we say them. I'm not, that's coming for anybody, but just for clarity, if the person is a messenger, what did they come to bring? What was the message? And he said it a number of times, but sometimes what someone is saying and what we're receiving may be two different things. Greetings, Debbie from London. We have, I think I heard something like that. If you have any article or information on that, yeah, Marcus had some interesting things to say about Selassie. This is what leads me to believe maybe not the fullness of all that was said by Marcus was, even if it was there, maybe it wasn't paid much attention to. Maybe the part that may have been more interesting. Maybe. Hold on. Oh, huh? You guys, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Sometimes you guys are like continuing something and I may have missed it. So if I don't read it, it's because I'm not sure if that's a continuation. Lala says Marcus's heart had a good intention to ship his people back to Africa on his Black Star liner, but this was not an instruction from the Most High, hence why it did not come to pass. Interesting. And no man shall save them, eh? And no man shall save them. Again, listen, I'm just gonna leave this here. I gave you guys the and I look forward to the spirited discussion below. Right? Just delineate some of the prophecies if you say he is, when they came to pass or if they've yet to come to pass. If you say no, respectfully, why not? Debbie says Bob awakened something in the masses. Yeah, the same thing could be said about Marcus. He awakened something in the masses as well. But speaking to a downtrodden demographic of people, right? What people today will call a vulnerable population. There are certain things that through observation one could surmise. You know what I mean? One could reason, if we're going to the Rasta reasoning, that this would be what you need. It's not necessarily outside of the realm or into spiritual things per se that one could see. Listen, these people are oppressed. These are the things you're lacking, and you speak to those things. This is why even today, the what them call the movement, the prosperity movement, the prosperity preachers are so popular because you can clearly see the needs of the people. And if you speak to the needs of said people, you will have their attention. Especially if you're charismatic, especially if you're coming from a certain angle. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the messages that they were delivering is something that if someone takes a step back, it's obvious to see that this is what the people are going to need. You understand what I say? When I say vulnerable population, it's like when you see on social media and somebody wants for clout to go to somebody who's on the street. Of course, them are go on food. Of course, them are go on clothes. Of course, them are go on somewhere warm for little. So if you speak along those lines and you try to let them know that, listen, I have the solution for those problems, then they're going to listen. Because why? They're in a certain position. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they're in a certain position that they're going to be inclined to hear you out because those are the things that they need. And so we also, to me, considering the time when we just read the quote from Bob, who said he's not a prophet, that he's able to see and discern from what he's seeing, I could understand that. Because growing up in, well, it wasn't post-colonial yet, but going up into a culture that the people are still not fully standing up, okay, because of the regime that they're under and the government that they're under, and you are a part of that, you know that what ails them, you know what the troubles are, and if you speak to those things, people are going to hear you, especially if you say, hey, now I have the answer, this and this and this agwan. This is how they set up even commercials. They check the demographic. Oh, you have trouble with this, that, and that. Then they hit all the pain points, and then they tell you, "Me have the answer. Call 1-800 zub zub zub." I kind of the way the thing work, you know. I says, growing up Jamaican says the Bible is a compilation of historic stories. Who knows if Bob and Marcus stories won't end up in biblical stories? No, that's not the question. That's I'm not. No, I don't think the Bible is done written. As you said, we are living history. This is why I always say write it down. Because if they didn't write it down and the information wasn't transmitted, we wouldn't know to even have the conversation, right? So that's not, we are living history. It's just that at that time, the scribes had their specific job and purpose was to record it. But we've moved away from that. Then you had the oral tradition, and we moved away from that. So now people don't know what happened because no one is recording it. So that's why I'm big on write it down. You understand? So that's not my issue. My issue is where we are today, where we're reimagining their particular contribution or role because we have worked it up to be that. And if it is so, then if we examine it, it should come out to say, yes, I true, them a prophet. But if not, then why are we putting a prophet label on them when that's not what they were? Jenny says it's called psychology. Most pastors talk to the needs of the people and show them how God can help them. Yeah, basically. That's what people, and it's not only just the pastors, but I use that as an example, but I say that to say, seeing what an issue is by observing and then speaking to it, you're going to get people's attention. Thank you, Sharonette. Thank you. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the conversation. So let me know. I put the link in the box. Those are the two articles that I had. This is the reason why I brought it up. Again, people are putting people into God status, into idolatry status. And if we are going by what these men would have been going by, more so Bob than Marcus, because one of the stories about Marcus is that he didn't want to bring it from a religious standpoint, to what I understood from previous study. He wanted to come from a nationalistic standpoint and not a religious standpoint. If I'm not mistaken, he was Catholic, right? Or they said he was practicing Catholic. And so even when you had people in the organization like Josiah Ford, who understood that he was a Hebrew, right? Who wrote the national anthem for the UNIA, Marcus didn't want that angle. Marcus didn't want that angle. And so I say more so, when I say more so Bob than Marcus, Bob, how many pictures have you seen him? He's always reading his Bible. He's always reading his Bible. So even if he's interpreting it in the way through the lens of which the information that he's gotten, I think him more so taking Ethiopia, which by the way was not just Ethiopia, the country today. In ancient times, it was a larger landmass than it is today. But when Garvey is saying or repeating this, I think by the time it gets down the line a couple of decades later to Bob, his generation are looking for something. They're looking for answers. And this seems to be the answer. This seems to be the answer. Mm-hmm. Marcus, prior to his embrace of Black nationalism, was smitten. Yo, why are we bringing up? Yeah, I'm trying to be good, Norman. Norman said was smitten with a white girl during his childhood. Yeah, that was like episode 2 or 3. I didn't read about that somewhere. The most fervent black nationalists are usually rejected. You did, yeah. We went over that in the earlier episodes. We went over how he was rejected by his the one he favored the most. We went over him. This is Marcus talking about his Spanish heiress. We don't know the name for her. We went over his rejection by the Wesleyan preacher that called him a ninja. Like, we went over all of those things, which is curious to see how he gets to the point that he is. But later on, he does refer to himself, just bringing it back to this topic. He refers to himself as a prophet, but Marcus said a whole lot. So I don't know what part he was prophesying about. I can't say that he ain't say something. All I know is that what he's most known for, which is the look to the east, what he's most known for is actually not his prophecy. That's all I got today. Yeah, Bob Marley's thinking with the question marks over his head. Yeah, Norman's saying that he's born and bred in Jamaica and he saw the original Rasta always traveling with a Bible. Because again, where are you getting the liberty from? You're getting it from a Naz. So basically, you took the Nazarene narrative and then made it the central focal point, right? Which was supposed to be Samson's whole, remember his mother and your son, don't let him cut his hair and don't drink of the vine, because he's going to be a Nazarene, this, that, and the third. Nazarene vows, not all of them are for life. Sometimes it's for a period of time and something happens. So, but they took this particular part of it and then they made it the focal point, which is also curious, right? But they did bring to the world stage the concept of the 12 tribes being scattered throughout, and the 12 tribes now being these people who are returning, and these are the people of the book. So there's a lot of things that Rasta did. I'm not trying to fight down, all the things that Rasta did. I'm getting clarity on this conversation of Rastafari and how it evolved, how it began, and where it ultimately ended up. And to a certain degree, it ended up having people worship man. And we know that that was one of the key sins of the people. If we're going to talk about biblical narratives, one of the key sins of the people is idolatry. So then the question is, did this aspect of Rasta, I'm not talking about the liberty, I'm not talking about Aita, I'm talking about, did this aspect of Rasta lead back into the sins that Israel was already predisposed to in the first place? That's the question. I have the mic open. I mean, I like texting, but I also like to hear, so that I don't misconstrue, or that I can listen and I kind of ask questions back while I'm talking. But yeah. Good evening to those who just joined us. The 12 tribes is a biblical concept indeed. But again, like I'm saying, these are all of the concepts that Rastafari is built on. And it's really a rebranding. The name Rastafari, like, how did you, I understand, but you now named a sect. Like, even if you look in the New Testament, you had different sects of people: Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes. So basically, Rastafari would have been among, do you believe that Selassie is the coming again? And they say yes. Okay, now you're Rastafarians. Do you believe that the law is not done away with and that you should? Yes. Okay, so you're a Pharisee. Do you believe in the spiritual aspect of the? Okay, no problem. You're an Essene. You understand what I'm saying? So it looks like there was a continuation of what was already happening before the final destruction of Jerusalem and the scattering of the people in 70 AD. This is already happening before, and we just witnessed a new world, so to say, reoccurrence of something that was already happening. Correct that within Rastafari there are other sects, but what I'm comparing, what this sect would be, is did you believe this, this, and this? Oh, you do? No problem. Now you have a new name to separate you from these guys. You know what I mean? So my question is, if it's to bring more unity, how did we get more division? If it's to bring more unity, how did we get more division? Am I spelling sense? Remember what I used to say when we look a bit? That must spell sense. Am I spelling sense? You know? So that's, I mean, I could go deeper, but you can't, to really understand Rasta, you have to understand, or you have to understand the Bible. You have to understand where they're pulling this information from and how they're using it to now uh, shape this particular narrative of who this person would be. Like, did you hear? Let me go back and read. All of this, what that I just said was for another day, is King of Kings. What does that mean? Where's that coming from? Lord of Lords, where's that coming from? How can a man be King of Kings, Lord of Lords? A person. Question. I'm trying to figure out what it is. They took that from somewhere. Now the question is, when it was said, where it was said, and where it is quoted from, what's the context of that? Yeah, Garnet Silk did sing that, but Garnet Silk is just repeating. I remember that song. Garnet Silk is repeating what was already said. This is what I'm saying. We heard it in song. And the problem, one of the issues with hearing something in song is that you have to, when creating lyrics, you have to shape it in a way that is catchy, shape it in a way that people are going to remember. So the full story is not necessarily going to be in the lyrics. You're going to get a highlight from something that is like we're doing today, but you're going to just get a highlight and it's going to be highlighted in the lyrics. Right? So we have to go beyond the lyrics to see what was informing that particular thought, that particular conversation, that particular understanding, and with a clear mind, right? So that if we pass down this information, we're not passing down misinformation. So I don't see anyone coming up right now. I'm not going to jump into a full Bible study today. Although I could, but I'm not going to jump into a full Bible study today. But yeah, I just wanted to leave that right there and go ahead and wind down. Division comes with confusion. I mean, everything. What doesn't have rewrites? There's a lot of things. This is what I'm saying. A lot of things have the same thing we're talking about. Survival said jumping. We're gonna bust a whole Torah study early, right? But what is curious is if those who embrace the message that Bob had, then has to embrace that which was informing the message. Because then how do you embrace the messenger and not the message? And you understand me? Say it get kind of hairy. It get kind of hairy. Usually they say, listen to the message, don't watch the messenger. LF already know. We're not going into full Torah breakdown right now. I'm just vibing. I'm just vibing, LF. Just asking questions, and providing information. So again, his message is he is coming and sharing what he knows from the text, and he's pointing you back to the text. Now, what he understands from that is something different, right? If you look at, first of all, let me just do this really quickly. Israel, because we're talking about Rasta, who says conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. Judah is what? The fourth son of who? Jacob, yes? So Judah is one of the who? 12 tribes. Selassie will not have any relevance without whom? Solomon, a descendant of who? Judah. Great. So you have to understand biblical knowledge to understand what is even being said. Right? To understand what is being said, you have to understand biblical knowledge to understand. This is like I had to stop. Of course, I want to read about Amy and Marcus, but to understand what's really going on, I had to understand who is Marcus talking to. You know what I mean? What is he referring to? Because it's bothering me. I don't know if everybody move like that. That's how I move, so that I don't come to erroneous understandings, right? Like, oh yeah, it means da 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 da. Come here, make it up because I don't know. I don't like to do that. So in the case of Israel, which had 12 sons and a daughter, whom I should say, Judah being the line that the kings would come from. This is why they say conquering line of the tribe of whom? Judah, right? Speaking to prophecies that were made of Judah, okay? But another thing we're to understand is that kings were not in the original design for Israel. This is why I take pause when you point towards a king and then people start worshiping that king, because in the beginning of the conversation, kings were not the design for the nation of Israel, because the creator was the king of Israel. So when the people came and asked Samuel for a king, it grieved, according to the text. If we want to go back there, according to the text, it was not a good thing. And not only was it not a good thing, it was said of the people. It was said of the people, guess what? This is what the king is going to do. He basically, you can go and read it. He's going to use you. He's going to exploit you. He's going to pimp you out, but give them what they want. Read that conversation between the prophet Samuel, and when he beseeches the creator, because the people demand a king. So if you look at David, if you look at Saul, if you look at Solomon, and you look at the split house of Israel, and you look at all of the subsequent kings, you find that there is a reoccurring theme that we cannot ignore when we come all the way down the line to Rastafari. Put the money in the when you come all the way down to Rastafari, you cannot ignore it. Why? Because the history of this quote fulfillment is important. This is going to be able to help you determine whether or not it is factual or not. Thank you, survival. That's right. They weren't supposed to have a king. This is very, by asking for correct, they were replacing the creator with a man. And this is why I'm asking, if what you were telling me to do ends up having the people worshiping a man, one has to ask the question, hold on there, which part will I go? Because man worship wasn't a part of the equation. So when someone asks me what I believe, my yardstick, my meter stick by which I'm looking through this whole thing, first of all, I'm not new to Rastafari. That's number one. I'm not new to the philosophy or the ideology or the liberty. I'm not new. That's why you say, Amuna, how you know all of this stuff? Let's just say I'm not new. You understand? But also, let's just say at the time it's being introduced, I don't have the reasoning skills, because you're a child. You don't have you're hearing what's being said and you're repeating what's being said, but you don't know the details. You don't know what's going on. You don't really know what's going on. You only just know from what you see. So again, with this whole, looking towards a man in Haile Selassie, because he's the fulfillment and a son of Solomon, does not mean that this person should be worshipped. Why? Because we already know that man worship was problematic. I'm not going to go too far. I just wanted to share that because it's important as we go down the line. So my question is, if this is what, if you led the person closer to the divine, that's one thing. But if you led the person into the arms of a human being, Adam, man, and they're worshiping that person and putting that person up on a pedestal and making an idol, you're violating the commandments seen in Exodus 20. You shall make no graven images. If anything that's in the heavens above, the earth beneath, or the waters under the earth. That means if you make an image in your mind and you create a person and you said this person is God, like we saw written before, right away you're causing people to stumble, even if it was unintentional, right? Even if it was unintentional, that is causing someone to stumble. And so that's something that we need to look at. Correct. Survival path. Absolutely. So we have to be careful. I didn't know what degree uh this was actually going on until I started having these conversations. And I'm like, oh, hold on there, hold on there, hold on there. Just because somebody a point in a direction, that don't mean you're supposed to stop and try worship the person there. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? That's just my thoughts. If we're going to say that these people were coming from this text, maybe in another text that's applicable, but not in this one. Not in this one. Let me read some of these things here. Let me read some of the things. The link is in the box, by the way, everybody, if anybody else wants to come up and share. Like I said, am I capable in going into a hole? Yeah, pretty much. But it's ultimately going to lead there anyway, because that's what this conversation was about. For Africa to unite, let me just say that because that was brought up in what we just read. For Africa to unite, right, is to be of the understanding that that Africa is a monolith and the people within Africa is a monolith. And we know historically the people of Africa are not monolithic. It's not necessarily, quote, one people. Now, can you work collectively? Yes. But to say that you take away the nuances that are in the tribes and the customs and the cultures, is that realistic? Question. Right? We even have certain animals, but then you have different species within that. You understand what I'm saying? It's like all animals unite, like them I do them thing. You know what I mean? It's not to say that they don't work. There's not an ecosystem, but how is this working in reality? Oh wow, Norman said you saw them passing going to Kingston to greet Selassie. Yeah, a lot of stuff is happening and we don't know what's happening before us because we're young, so we don't know. Is when you grow older, you say, wait a minute, that did I go on? You don't know. You don't know. LF says in LA, some people are making Nipsey into an idol. And I saw that when the mural started going up, and because people tend to do that. And that's a dangerous thing to do. I saw that when he passed, and I saw that the direction things started to go in, Growing up says we need to see God in ourselves. We need to debunk the leader concept. We are leaders. And that's the question. Are we always looking? The nation of Israel had a predisposition towards looking for a savior, like you're saying, looking for someone to go before them, looking for someone to speak on their behalf, not wanting to hear. Actually, the children of Israel, according to the text, actually told Moses that they did not want to hear the voice of the Creator and that Moses should go ahead of them and give them the message. Yeah? So the people once again put man in between themselves and the divine. And this happens, we see it in all types of places, what different types of religion, that man now becomes this mediator between the individual and the divine. And as you're saying, if you don't find within yourself that connection, you're always going to be wholly dependent on a next man for allow you to come into contact with that which has created you. And that is where problems, according to what I'm able to see, it can easily go left. It can easily go left. King David seed via the Queen of Ethiopia, but when both are true Israelite man and woman produce a child, there's a difference in the terms of potencies. Yeah, that's another question as well, Lala, about if we look at it's not David's seed, it is David's seed, quote unquote, but this story And I remember going to Ethiopia, and the story is present all over. Let's just say that, right? As one of the oldest or original Christian before this Christianity that we know, they hold a older form of Christianity. And this story is very much pervasive throughout the culture. Let me just say that. It's not just something where, you're hearing it from the outside. However, when we look at Solomon and his deviation from the order, let's say, and his, according to the story, because the story, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to be in the Keber Nagas, because it's not in the text, it's not in the canon, right? That what actually happens. There's a lot of misunderstanding even still around that whole conversation. There's a lot of mix up even in the Solomon story, and whether or not Sheba was actually from Ethiopia or whether she was some Sheva, which means the south, and she really came from Yemen. And there's a whole deep, deep, deep well there. But what we do know is that Solomon would have procreated with someone, like you're saying, that was not another Israelite, and therefore sending outside of the nation this seed, which is another story unto itself, right? And that would have been who Selassie would have been coming from. It's curious. It's curious. It's curious. Yeah, we can love and appreciate people. We can grow. We can become closer because other people, but we should not worship those people. That turns into idolatry. Y'all are on it today. Y'all are on it today. Put some hearts in the chat. Hey, this is, I guess the conversation is leading to right where we are, because this is where it needs to be. Because what we don't understand is that, or maybe we do, or maybe we don't. So I don't even want to assume that we do or don't. But what I'm seeing is that we put blockages in our lives by getting into worshiping of people or even things, right? And so it's something to be considered, as Survival is saying. Yeah, save yourself. Okay, Norman is saying, growing up Jamaican, I have grown in my spiritual understanding that this God thing is not external to me, but internal. The Christian doctrine is describing God as an entity to aspire to. It depends on, I mean, I would say within and without. Because to say that the creator is only inside, that means that the world that we live in is created by who then? You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I would say within and without. Because we are a part of creation. So if the creator is also within us, then the creator has to also be in the creation at large. You know what I mean? That's just this. Now this is going off of, this is usual. This is going into our reasoning session now, this is me come off of the book work now, and me reason with you. So you can definitely share your thoughts, but this is me reasoning with you on a spiritual level now. And again, the mic is open. But yes, you're right. Some religions only try to make the divine, the creator, be outside of the person, right? But if the creator dwells within and you're a part of creation, then that stands to reason that the creation that we see manifested, the creator has to dwell within it too. Because I make it. Is any of your videos have any content on Cindy going to Bob Marley funeral? I was looking for it but didn't find any. The only thing I heard was, no, I think I spoke on it briefly, where she's talking about not being invited to sit up front. That's the only thing we really hear, tell the truth. Out of all of Solomon's thousands of wives, 1,000, 700, 300 and 700, 1,000. From the other nations, apparently all the children were girls when he produced seed to his kindred Israelite, when he produced male offspring. No, actually, they only record, if I'm not mistaken, 3. They don't, of all those women, I don't really even know if Solomon, according to the text, is really with them, because To my understanding, there's only three. I could be wrong, but y'all let me know. Right, correct. I agree. Growing up Jamaican, the concept of understanding God is one that, or the Creator is one that, again, with each religion and each ideology, people twist and turn and do all kind of stuff. And I think this, in my experience, is what turns a lot of people off, because you are looking for man to explain the divine, and then this person, man, when I say man, I mean mankind, this person now becomes the focal point. So what we tend to do, like say if the person is in the church and it is the pastor who is explaining God, then the person begins to look at the pastor to see the manifestation. This is why back to the prophecy conversation, the manifestation of God, right? And when the people don't see it, then they blame the creator, which I think is just the weirdest thing. Like, you're looking at man who is fallible, and then say because man failed, then that's the creator. Um, I'll be on live. I usually come on in the evening, but it depends on where you are. Because so for some people it's morning, you know what I mean? I don't have a set schedule, but it's usually Eastern time around 6, 7 o'clock. Them with it. Ask what time I come on live. So with that said, I floated over here into the reasoning, and I have not been puffing on no herbs, so no worries. But this is something that I could definitely talk about. If you're interested, we can continue to reason, because a lot of people struggle with it, and it's really the concept that was given, something that doesn't gel with the soul, then the person rejects the creator altogether, because what, the person who told you was off. Like, if I follow the people who try to tell me something, even about the Bible, that we're off, you can't make persons lead you all because they're off. That just means they're off. That don't mean the information is necessarily off. It may be that they're explaining it incorrectly, or that they were a bad steward or a bad representative. You know what I mean? Oh gosh, survival. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Survival Past says she in Jerusalem. It's 3 a.m. Sorry to keep y'all up. Sorry to keep you on. Yes, Bob did not want to be worshipped. He actually said, one interview, the guy said, "Oh, you're a superstar." He looked at him. He was like, "Superstar? Man, I'm not superstar." So really, this is the people's doing. If you remember in the wilderness, according to the narrative, y'all, for those who over here talking about Rastafari and y'all like Bob's message, so we going in the Bible. Exodus is a whole book now. Don't be getting like, I don't want to talk about the Bible. Exodus is a whole book. Okay. Movement of Jah people is talking about the Exodus from Egypt. Okay. When the people get into the wilderness and Moshe goes up on the mount, they turn and look to Aaron. And what do they say to him? Up ye and make us deities, not me, them. So the people are always looking for something outside of them to worship. There's a disconnect somehow, some way. And the people said, up and make them deities. And what's the first deity that they made? The first deity that they made was a calf. Now, some people will be like, yo, why did they make a calf? Because of the thousands of deities that were represented in Egypt, the calf, Apis is the name of that calf, was one of their deities. And if you look up what that deity represented, and you look that they were hungry and that they were wandering and thirsty in the wilderness, they were looking for this familiar deity. They didn't ask to make the crocodile with the long titties. They didn't ask to make the scarab. They didn't ask to make all of these, the cobra. They asked him to make the cow, the golden calf, because that represented something in their minds from the idolatrous place that they just came from. But that's for another day. That's for another day. He wanted people to develop themselves and free themselves. He never considered himself worthy of being worshipped, because he knew he was just a man. And how did people get here? That means this would have to be the doing of the people. And that, I mean, it's not far-fetched. Like I just said, that's the same thing the people did. Oh, the person gone? Oh, up and make this thing. What are we doing? All right. Yes, Renee, welcome to the conversation. All is well. I hope all is well with you too. You're welcome, Survival. This is an important conversation. I'm just flowing right now. A lot of times I come like just to give what it is, but right now it's flowing. LF said crocodile with titties. Okay, LF, when you look look, when you look at the Egyptian deities, right? The Nile River, when you look at the Nile River, which was their source of sustenance because they didn't get rain, right? Uh they didn't get rain. This is why when the Creator told the children of Israel, "I'm going to take you to a place, not like the place that you came from, that you're going to water on land," because they would take the buckets from the Nile and water their plants. He says this plant race is going to get rain in its due season, talking about the land of Israel. So in the case of the Egyptians, one of their deities was the crocodile with the titty. I don't want to bring him up now because I don't want to see him because but anyway, it was supposed to be this fertility because there were crocodiles in the Nile, but it represented the fertility of the Nile because whenever the inundation of the Nile, whenever it flooded over the banks and receded and left that little black silt back, that meant that they were going to have a good year, right? Because this was what they were going to use for their crops. But if it didn't flood the way it should have flooded, they're going to have drought, right? So the whole conversation about the way Egypt was set up and the predisposition to the children of Israel to be inclined towards certain things, I did the study and it is very interesting. So that's what I'm talking about with the crocodile. Actually, the word that we use for being quote unquote happy is the name of the deity. It's just spelled HAPI, right? And that's the name of the deity. And for a good while, it's difficult because the English language has woven into it a lot of idolatry. And it's like that little line mine game where you're trying to step over all of the stuff because it's literally woven into the language every day, right? So it really takes a consciousness. When Rasta said you really have to create a language then speak, it's true. And it does take a level of consciousness to navigate around a lot of this stuff. So that's what I meant when I said that. That's what I meant when I said that. So that is, hopefully I gave you something to think about or something to share or something to consider. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We at 1:37. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And hold on one second. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know how I got over here. People struggle to understand. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. They think they need an image. And that is the root of idolatry. It is. That's why it says create nothing. And who is able to kind of understand that in the way in their prohibition on certain things. When you look at Islam, they're very committed to what I understand about not making idols, right? And being very aware, even when you look at their architecture, because historically, humanity, not just one set of people, humanity tends towards worshiping the created versus the creator, right? For some weird reason. All right, everybody. Yeah, and that's also curious. That's why I said that's also curious. I think different people have different components and you can see it modeled, but not the entirety of the thing, right? Different people have different aspects. Like, for instance, learning to govern yourself and your desires, maybe they don't have all of it right, but when you look at monks, and when you look at their desire to govern the internal self, that's what they focused on. And to a certain degree, they're able to master self-government, right? And then you may look at another set of people, and they may have mastered the cohesiveness, like following instructions. You understand what I'm saying? Like when you look at them making Hajj, or you making pilgrimage to Mecca, this is what a group of people, a whole population of people, millions of people of one mind. And if you look at it, you're like, whoa, that's what that looks like. So I'm not saying anyone, in my study, estimation, and learning, any one set of people has it, but different people have different aspects of what it would look like if you follow the fullness of the instruction, if you can understand what I said. So I don't know if you've ever seen, I was trying to illustrate one time in a studying, and just, if you, it's on YouTube, a guy did like a whole, he did Hajj, he did pilgrimage to Mecca, and then he videos it, and then you see the people collectively of one mind doing whatever it is that they're doing, right? And so it's just curious to learn and grow. I want to go on here, so I quarrel. Me I go no. Why y'all quarreling? I missed something. I missed something. Y'all not clicking on the link, but y'all, what's going on here? Hold on. I'm not even gonna get into it. Let me see, and then I'm gonna wind down. All I ask is that we be respectful. Turn bomb off after with some of her extra matter. Huh? Kaya, what is ya? What about Bob's extramarital affairs? What we are talking about? What in the world? Look, y'all, we already did videos on that. So if you want to go into Bob's treatment of Rita and what is this in comparison to how he treated Cindy, definitely check that out. We went over a lot of that information already based on the books. Based on the books. I know y'all not quarreling. At first, I looked up. I was like, what are y'all talking about? Nah, they over here doing bun for bun. Listen now, I'm going to go ahead and wind down. I want y'all continue the conversation in the comment section below. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Listen now. Everybody have a blessed day. No, Dr. Charles, not laugh, y'all. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I was over here talking about the crocodiles in the Nile, and y'all over here talking about bun for bun. What in the world? Me look up and say, what going here, so? We had that conversation, y'all. Go ahead and check out the video if you missed it. This was about prophets. Hopefully, we covered the topic. Oh, no, laugh. Listen, no, me no want to continue. But me I go boogie, I know. I'm going to get some water and some tea and thing. So everybody have a blessed night. Continue the conversation in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in. And don't worry, next time we tune in back again, hear me and Marcus, we say. Straight.